Chapter 2. Ma and I were heading up to our classroom early the next morning when I saw Paul stopped in the hallway, staring at the wall. At the sight of him, my heart fluttered. Falling in love by seeing her twerking on the bathroom door. But okay, Hannah. Hold on. There. Maya followed my gaze. Ooh, I see how this is. Hold on, let me check. Is this alright? Yeah, okay, I'm in the middle of the frame. That's good. Well, don't mind me. I'll be waiting for you in class. She gave me a wink and a nudge towards Paul. Mai, I told you. It wasn't like that. It was a group date. Kind of. Except for that bit at the end. See you later. She disappeared through the staircase door and I was left staring at the back of Paul's neck. Hey Paul. Paul jumped and I turned around. Hey Hannah. He sighed and turned back to the wall. Are you okay? You don't seem very happy. Look. I looked over his shoulder at what was on the wall. A neon blue poster proudly proclaimed Space Hamster for President. Small caption underneath the reading garish highlighter yellow. Together we'll rocket into space.
What?
Whoa. Together we'll rocket into space.
What?
What? Jeff's running for president. Things aren't looking good. Jeff as president? What would ever possess him to think that was a good idea? Not that Jeff wasn't a great guy. I mean, in all of my time knowing him, I had no reason to suggest he wasn't. It was just that, well, a position of personal responsibility over a large segment of the student population, several of which were complete idiots, and the myriad valid perspectives and differing opinions you had to entertain while making decisions. It just didn't make any sense. You'll be able to beat him easily, right? I mean, you're outgoing, charismatic, funny. You've got all the qualities of a good leader, and I feel like you're a natural politician. Paul chuckled. Thanks for saying that, but I don't think I can take this lightly. Jeff is a formidable opponent. He might not look it, but he's got a calming presence. When a group of people are confused, they look to him for guidance. He strongly appeals to the youth of this generation. This generation? You're talking like you're way older than us. Anyway, I'll definitely have to step up my game if I wanted to win. Just putting up posters won't be enough. It looks like this is going to be a long battle. A battle for the hearts and minds of the people. How cool! I beamed at him, and he cocked an eyebrow. Are you teasing me? What? Me? No, I'm just, okay, I'm teasing you a little bit, but I also think it's really cool. I'd never be able to run for president. I'm always the person in the background doing the weird things like organizing schedules and filing papers. I'd never be able to stand in front of a crowd and try to get them to trust me. That takes some gusto.
Seriously?
Knowing you, this will be a competition to look forward to. Ha! He chuckled and rustled my hair. Hey! I patted it back down, glaring at him. Thanks, Hannah. You cheered me up. You should head to class, though. Can't have you missing class on my account. Okay, try not to worry too much about it. I will. Worry about it. I waved to him as I left, but just as before I reached the stairway, I glanced back at him. He was still staring at the poster, rubbing his neck as though he had a headache. I hoped he wasn't going to stress out about it too much. As soon as I took my seat, a familiar shock of red hair and green eyes obstructed my view. Hannah, so tell me, how'd it go? I told you there was nothing romantic! He was worried about Jeff running for president, so... At the sound of Jeff's name, Ian glanced at us from across the room. I instantly shut up.
What?
Jeff's running for president? Why on earth would he do that? Let's not talk about this now. The important thing is you're overthinking things. I sighed. And then immediately perked back up. Fine, if you say so. I still think there are some feelings. Think what you want. You're delusional. We returned to our seats, and I got my stuff ready for class, thinking all the while, delusional. Yes, Maya was being delusional. Delusional. I was being delusional. I was laying awake in bed that night, for some reason unable to fall asleep. It was one of those times where no matter what I did, something was wrong. It was too hot, it was too cold, my pajamas too restrictive. I chilled the rungs of Maya's bed above me with my toes, waiting for a sleep fairy to magically whisk me to a land of slumber. And there came a knock on our door. It was a soft knock, a secretive one, and I sat up quietly, unsure of whether I heard it. No, there was it again. I stood and quietly padded over to the door, doing my very best not to wake Maya. I pulled open the door, a hair peeking out to see who it was. An excited Paul stood in the doorway, drumming his hands on his pans like a kid about to go on a roller coaster. I opened the door fully. Paul, what are you doing here? You're going to be in so much trouble if people find out about this.
Hey.
Anna. Paul grabbed my hands and held them to his chest, eyes glittering. I know I'm gonna beat Jeff, and you're going to help me. What? He released my hands and began pacing the narrow space in front of my doorway. I pulled the door closed so as not to wake Mai. It seemed like this could take a while. Nick, Josh, and I are all fantastic people. This is something that simply cannot be argued.
Oh, I know that.
We're charismatic, charming, destructive. We've got a triple hit combo in my guidance. Nick's positive humor and Josh dour but hilarious perspective. We're everything people want in friends. But we're not what people want in a leader. Not yet. We need a strategist, a social center, a female perspective. Where could we find these things? How many people could we trust enough to handle our delicate humor? Who wouldn't turn on us the first time we wreaked havoc upon their lives? He whirled to face me, an outstretched finger at my throat. That's where you come in. Paul, I don't know. You're kind, you're contemplative, you're intelligent, you understand the female perspective, and you bring a new view of life at Asagao that we couldn't share. That, and you're mysterious. A transfer student suddenly appearing at school, a girl with pink hair, and access to the school's most popular and influential men. I don't know how you did it, but you've got everyone's eyes on you. My shoulders hunched. I tried to ease them away from my ears. I didn't know about that. Moreover, I didn't want that. I didn't want people's eyes on me. Paul, I think you're misunderstanding. I'm not any of those things. I would love to help I would love to help out with your campaign, but I can't be part of the team. I'd be in the spotlight. I'd be responsible. I'm still new here. It's too much pressure, too much stress. What if I messed up and really hurt somebody? What if I made life worse for people and wasted their time? It's too much for me to handle. I can't. Paul grinned.
I know, right?
That's exactly why we need you, Anna. Don't you see? We need you to level us out. We are altogether too quick to make decisions, too sure of ourselves. I envisioned a flawless, unopposed victory. Even when Jeff first told me he was running, I didn't expect to gain a following. But today I was looking at these posters and I realized two things. First, he's serious about running. And second, the student body really feels like he could make a difference. More of a difference than I did past year. He cast his eyes on the floor for an instant, momentarily sad. I wanted to ask why, but he was already back at it. So, will you join me? With you, I really think we can do it. This is an important choice, guys. We need to save this one. Go to page 8. Save the game. I think I'm going for ... I have to think about it. I have no idea how I feel about it. How about it? Damn it. I have to think about it. I have no idea how I feel about it right now. Yeah? Paul's face fell for a second, then instantly brightened again.
All right.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is the caution and foresight we as a team require. Paul, keep your voice down. You'll cause a scandal. He cleared his throat, glancing nervously up and down the hall. Right. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing your answer. Did you want to know anything else before I left? Actually, there was a lot to consider here. If I joined, what would I be doing? Trailing after them and cleaning up their messes, making flyers and the like? Cheering them on? Providing consultations? And there was something else I wanted to know. Something that I wasn't sure I had the courage to ask. Was it just for the campaign you wanted my help? Or was there something more behind it? We'll be able to spend a lot of time together, after all. A knock on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. I really don't know anything else about that song. I've only heard it during commercials. I think it's... No, I'm not even gonna say it. I don't want to fuck up in front of a lot of people on the internet. Just saying nothing is the better option. What would my duties be? But why did you pick me specifically? I don't think I want to ask that. Me specifically is actually pretty obvious, actually. Like, we've seen all three of the guys swooning. What would my duties be? Good question. As expected of our Hana. I'm not your Hana. Yet. He grinned, and even though I knew he meant it platonically, my heart skipped a beat. Anyway, you'd help us organize fundraisers and ways of reaching the student body, as well as help us decide our campaign strategy and counter any moves put forth by our opponent. Most of all, you'd have to keep us rational. Make sure we don't let our emotions get the best of us if something happens. Did you do that? Well, I'll give it some thought. Paul nodded and he clapped me on the back. I shivered. Thanks, Hana. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Soon. Leave already. More than just your campaign will be in trouble if you get caught here. Alright, be seeing you, Hana, and sweet dreams. I nodded as I watched him stealthily jog down the hall out of sight. I sighed. No doubt working on the campaign would be fun, and I would get to spend a lot of time with Paul. But was I really okay with torturing myself by hanging around a guy who clearly wasn't interested? And could I face my fears of being in the public's eye? I crawled into bed, finally tired enough to sleep. One thing was for sure. I needed Maya's opinion. It sounds perfect to me, Hana. Maya and I sat at our sat at our desks before class the next day. I quietly told her about Paul's midnight visit, and at first ecstatic about the potential for a scandalous romance, quickly sobered. You were looking for a way to make more friends, right? Maybe this is the thing to do. I guess so. I popped a piece of gum into her mouth. The school newspaper opened on her desk. It's just that I don't know if I'm strong enough to be able to handle that. It's clear that he's not interested in me, and I don't want to spend more time with... I don't want to spend more time with him.
Bingo.
Maybe you'll get him over by spending more time with him. Sometimes that happens, you know. They seem great until you spend all your time with them.
Really?
You think? Well, let's just say I see this more likely in this case. I see this as more likely in his case. Okay. I drummed my fingers on the desk. By the way, Ruben, you know that this stream is English, so please keep it that way. I drummed my fingers on the desk. Maybe I could at least learn to see him as a friend while on the council, probably. It's just a crush after all. I'll get over it when I find someone else I'm interested in. I smiled at Mai, but she didn't even notice. Mai, are you even listening to me? Hana, you should read this. She tossed me the newspaper. The Continue news column blared off the page with the headline, Secret Weapon? My hands started to sweat as I read the words. Our current class president and one-third of the writing team for the Continue column, Paul Ritchie, has revealed that he has a secret weapon in store for this year's student council elections. The fight is tough this time around. The fight is tough this time around, Ritchie was quoted as saying, so I looked closely at our weaknesses and decided to enlist a bit of outside help. Students have professed worry over the balance of our team. Oh, there's still Paul. Students have professed worry over the balance of our team in more ways than one, and I'm happy to announce that this should ease their minds. Richie declined further questions, saying only, you'll meet her when the time comes. I put the newspaper down, watching Mai. No wonder everybody was reading it this morning. I bet half of them think he's got a girlfriend. Oh no. I put my head in my head in my heads. What? I put my head in my heads. Okay, good. Whatever. Mai patted me on the back, nodding sadly. There's no way I can refuse now, not when he's already done this. Not unless he has someone else in mind. How could he do something like this? That's so manipulative. I don't think he meant it like that. Mai's hand flew off my pack, and her eyes darted towards the door. Maybe you should tell him that yourself. Paul entered our classroom, glancing around it quickly. When he saw me, he grinned and darted over. There you are, my dear. Oh boy, he was not helping the situation. Paul, how could you put this in the paper? I never told you yes! Right, yeah, about that. I kind of told Nick and Josh to get started on the article right before I went to talk to you. And see, the newspaper gets sent to the printers at midnight. And once it's sent, we can't make changes without paying for it out of pocket. So by the time I got back, it was already in the paper. He giggled uncertainly, and I resisted the urge to smack his arm. What are you gonna do if I say no? You're going to say no? A ripple of whispers shot through the classroom. I glanced around and suddenly noticed everyone's eyes on me and Paul. Of course, I should have known. I lowered my voice to a whisper, trying to look as casual and uninvolved as possible. Having a senior visit the classroom in the morning specifically to see me. Heck, even most couples chose to meet outside so as not to draw attention. This was practically a declaration of intent to date, even if I knew Paul didn't see it that way. Was he really so thoughtless? Or did he just not see me in that way? So it never occurred to him others might feel we could be a couple. Either option depressed me. Look, we're making a scene. We should meet up after school to talk about it.
All right.
Great idea, Hana. If I can't convince you then, you're free to say no. But where should we meet? The king of bosses, hello. From America. Hello. Hello to America. You finally figured out why you couldn't watch your catch my streams? And why was that? He stroked his chin thoughtfully, then snapped his fingers.
Yeah.
I got it! I owe you an ice cream cone to make up for the one that I ruined. So how about that? As our conversation grew quieter, the students crowded closer. Meme was almost right behind Paul, with eyes like a devil. An ice cream date? Deal! So I'll meet you there at the class. Speaking of, you should really get going. The bell will ring any minute. Hey, you're right. He tousled my hair affectionately, and I instinctively shoved his arm away from me. See you then, Hana. He left the room, and I collapsed onto my chair. Gradually, the stillness in the class returned to its regular pre-lesson commotion, though dark looks still shot at me like curses. I whistled. Way to go, Hana, you're killing it. I know you said you didn't want to be in the spotlight, but it looks like you'll be there whether you want it or not. I sighed and threw my head down on my desk. Today was just not my day. Oh, whoops. After class, I said goodbye to Mai and made my way to the cafeteria, feet dragging like blocks of ice. For some reason, the slow trek felt like a death march. Part of me was saying goodbye to something. It's 4 a.m. for you. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're at the East Coast. Time zones make catching them a hassle, but it's worth. Oh, thank you. That's cool. Thank you. Part of me was saying goodbye to something. I watched the wind in the trees, smiled at the stressed faces of passing students. Yes, goodbye. It was a goodbye to life as I knew it. Thanks to Paul, everything was going to change. I had a good run, didn't I? By the time I got to the shop, Paul was waiting for me, along with a swarm of curious onlookers, all pretending to be there for food or some other activity. They appeared from behind their notebooks and strolled down the aisles of the school shop, eyes straining to see past the bag of chips and wrapped onigiri to Paul and me.
Hana!
Hey Hana, glad you could make it! Yeah, me too. Paul led the way to the counter, where he ordered 2 vanilla ice cream cones with a dazzling smile. Then, after a brief pause, he looked at me. Wait, please cover one of those cones in sprinkles.
Yay!
Sprinkles! Woo! The cafeteria heard my cry and chuckled. When Paul received the cones, one was so drenched in sprinkles he couldn't even see the vanilla. I bounced excitedly on my heels. Careful not to drop this one. I'm not the one who should be worried about that. Ice creams in hand, Paul led us away from the usual Normal Boots Club table and to a table next to the window. We sat and soaked in the sunshine. It was a small change, but I had never seen the cafeteria from this angle. It made it feel special. So, Paul bit the tip of his ice cream and looked at me. I'm terrible at small talk when something is on my mind, so we'll skip it. Tell me how I can convince you to join the campaign. I slurped my ice cream, then chewed it thoughtfully. The sprinkles would definitely make my mouth look like a rainbow carnival. Note to self, try not to smile. Why not? A rainbow smile is the best smile. What would make me feel comfortable joining the campaign? I kicked my feet aimlessly under the table, gazing out the window. The temptation of spending time with Paul, exactly as we were now, was already something in his favor, but I really had no confidence I could be of any help. I barely knew Asagao, and people didn't care about me the way Paul seemed to think they did. Well, maybe now they knew my name, but it was not a positive association, not for the girls anyways. They didn't know most things about how the student government worked, or how it helped the school, or what the needs were. Wasn't even a position that could affect change. Paul was watching me carefully, his breath held. As I gazed into his face, I realized I was missing a key component of the campaign. Why do you want to be president?
Well,
Paul tapped his nose, as if I asked the question. See, I'm not a great philanthropist or anything. I don't think I can claim to have an unabashed, indiscriminate desire to do whatever I can to make the world a better place. When it came down to it, if I had to choose between taking care of my friends or taking care of strangers, I pick my friends first. I'm compassionate, but I'm not a martyr. Let's get that out of the way first. He's just giving his speech. He furrowed his brow, rolling his neck out. This question is so hard. Every time I answer differently. It's just that it matters so much. I don't know if I can give one answer that comes close to how I feel about it. Okay. He set his hands down on the table, tapping it rhythmically as he voiced his thoughts. So let's say you want to make some kind of difference, and you have the whole entire world to go about doing that in, right? There's lots of stuff going on everywhere. Climate change, poverty, the literacy rate, water access. There's so much one person can do, but one person can't do all of it. You have to pick and choose your battles. Right now, my world is a lot smaller. He drew a tiny circle on the table. Right now, my world is Asagao and the Normal Roots Club. And while I was here years prior, I would walk around to see how ineffectual our student government was. Like, it was just a title. People ran and got perks like skipping class, but they didn't feel any responsibility to the student body. If you noticed, all culture activities are put on by the students of their own choosing. Jared's fashion show, John's play. There was this major communication gap between teachers and students. Students were literally going mad with stress. Mr. McPosse used to sleep for only 4 hours a night. He was working so hard dealing with all of us. It wasn't like I was looking for a way to make the world better or anything. I just looked around and thought, hey, this isn't right. And I talked to Nick and Josh, and we came up with all these ideas for how we could be better. We were sitting there in our room congratulating ourselves for having figured out all these solutions, feeling really good about it and everything. And finally one of us just goes, why don't we actually do it then? Paul leaned back, his hands sliding into his lap. He seemed relieved. So we did, and that's how it happened. Wait, what was the question again? I pointed silently to the ice cream cone he'd set on the table, which was now forming a puddle on the laminate surface. Paul cursed and started licking around the cone, bent down like a dog, threw some napkins on the table, then bit into my cone, watching him lap up the vanilla. This is our student council president. I bit into the cone again, so undignified half the time, so unintentionally destructive, so gung-ho that he didn't even notice how his failures messed with the rest of us. I sighed and popped the rest of the cone into my mouth. Paul was drinking the vanilla out of his increasingly soggy cone. Our conversation forgotten. I clasped my hands on the table. I'll do it.
what?
What? You will? You don't even know what my platform is yet. I mean, I haven't really made it, but it's fine, I'll do it. I want to help you. Paul raised an eyebrow at me, clearly confused about my sudden change of heart. I shook my head. I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, good. Great. In that case, we were planning to have a meeting tomorrow during lunch to get a strategy going. I'll be there. I smiled sadly at him. Are you sure you're okay? You don't really seem happy about this. I jammed my fingers against the table, wondering how to explain what just happened. Have you ever just kind of had something drop into your lap that you couldn't turn away, no matter how you felt about it? I don't think so. I shrugged. It's hard to explain, but there was no way I could refuse. I need to be in this campaign with you. I just do. Paul stared at me in shock. Then a small smirk quirked his lips. Well, I think there was something special about you. He was clearly impressed with me, and it pricked me. I scanned the cafeteria, noting the people hovering just out of earshot. I think I'm going to head out. Okay, I'll walk you back. Paul gathered up the soggy napkins and stood, but I held out my hand. Please don't. Lana, I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I left him standing there in the cafeteria, quickly running through the... You missed the beginning of Paul's route at the flower festival. basically. And Paul asked Hana to like be part of his like campaign to keep them rational and not let them their emotion get the better of them. Their emotions. Left him. I left him sitting there in the cafeteria, quickly running through the hovering people and out into the sunshine, gasping for air. The sun was setting. That conversation must have taken longer than I thought. I jogged back to the dorms, trying hard not to think about what happened, trying very hard to ignore the sinking feeling that hit my stomach as I listened to him speak. But there was nothing for it. The damage was done. Oh. I walked into my room, hoping desperately Mai would be at practice with or busy with something, but... Hana! You have to tell me everything! How did it go? Are you on the campaign? Man, you're going to kick total ass! I just know it! I knew you were designed for great... This... Fucking Christ! I knew you were destined for greatness! Mai grabbed my hand, jumping up and down. I avoided her eyes.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's wrong with you? I threw down my bag next to my desk, and I tried to take off my shoes with my feet. One came off easily, but the other, the right one, caught on my ankle, just like it always did. I tied the laces too tight once, and I never bothered to fix them when I put them on, so it always happened when I went to take them off. And now I was standing here like a dilapidated pumpkin, and all I wanted was this stupid shoe off! Ah! I threw myself on the floor and ripped the shoe off with my hands. Maya watched me in silence. I put my head in my hands, covering my face, breathing deeply, trying hard not to let it show. Trying very hard to not let it show. Hana, are you okay? I shook my head slowly. Did you join in when you didn't want to?
What a jerk!
Or did he do something bad to you again? I wiped my face with a hand. No, that's the problem. I took a deep breath again, not wanting to talk while I was crying, but it was too late. That sentence opened the floodgates, and I started sobbing on the floor. What happened then? I flew to my side, rubbing my back. Whatever happened, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure he didn't mean it, or you'll do great. Or I buried my head in her shoulder, shaking my head. I'm just being a baby. It's not really a bad thing at all. I just didn't want it to happen. I didn't think it would happen. I didn't know it could happen this way. How long are you going to talk around this? Just tell me what happened. I pulled my hat back so I could see her face. It wasn't something I wanted to admit. I didn't even know how to admit it. It was just something that had never happened before. While sitting there and listening to Paul, listening to plain and utter compassion he had for people, listening to how passionately he wanted to be the student council president and how he came to that decision, as he spoke, I felt a terrible sinking feeling in my stomach. I looked out the window then. The cherry blossom tree that had been blooming during the flower festival was losing its petals, and I watched another fall to the ground in slow motion. So this is what it feels like, I thought. I'm in love with Paul, and I don't even understand how it happened. Maya's hands froze for a second. Then he started rubbing my back yet again. I waited for her to tell me that I was blowing things out of proportion or jumping to conclusions, but she said nothing. When I looked up at her, she was shaking her head, staring at the wall.
Well...
That's just how things fall sometimes, Hana. At some point, I was able to calm myself and look at the situation realistically. Feelings were feelings, and I couldn't control them. At some point, they'd pass or go away, and if they didn't, I'd find a way to deal with them. Besides, I had no way of knowing whether this was truly love. I've never experienced it before, after all. I was going on my gut instinct, but plays have been written about why teenagers trusting their gut instinct was a terrible idea. I managed to make it through class the next day with my sanity intact. I had to loosen my shoulders. When the bell rang, I stood from my chair and Mike gave me a huge thumbs up. I nodded, but otherwise ignored her. I didn't need a thumbs up. I needed sanity. As I headed through the hallway, I began to notice something weird. People were pointing at me, shocked looks on their faces like I was wearing a blood-red clown nose. That's her. Doesn't look like much. I bit my lip. Was this because of helping with the campaign? It seemed like an odd thing for people to be so concerned about. Maybe Paul was right, and this was really a good publicity move. It wasn't until I stepped outside and saw the newspapers in the rack that I understood. President dating campaign assistance! We received an anonymous tip that Hana Mizuno, the third-year transfer student from Amiririsu, is the secret weapon that Paul Ritchie spoke of. However, sources are divided on how this weapon is supposed to function. It appeared that they were engaged in human activity one would call a date or an outing, our anonymous source reported. Perhaps she gives them the moral strength required to operate in a civilly unjust society. Regardless of the motive, one thing is clear. This couple has caught the public's eye. Here's hoping for a happy ending. I flung the newspaper back on the rack and stalked towards the cafeteria, mind racing. This was not what I wanted to happen. This was the opposite of what I wanted to happen. So why was I smiling so much? That's interesting. I got my ham and bologna sandwich. Bologna. I don't know how it's pronounced in English. I'm just gonna say with bologna. I didn't feel like eating anything more. Anything more complicated. G'day. And scanned the lunchroom for the section that had the most frenzied activity. As expected, Paul, Nick, and Josh were at the table, grinned at me, and went to meet them, contemplating how I should bring up the newspaper article. As I sat down, they cleared their throats. I'm Paul. I'm Nick. Baloney for you. Okay. I'm Nick. And I'm Josh.
Yeah.
And welcome to our campaign team! From beneath the table, they drew out small confetti poppers and pulled them. Confetti sprang onto my face, small clouds of smoke drifting across the tabletop. We're glad to have you! Yes, truly glad, truly blessed. You have no idea how much this means to us, to me in particular. I'm sure you will be a very valuable asset. Your perspective is highly valued. Josh nodded to himself, and Nick shot him a glare. I dusted the confetti off of my head, glaring at them. So, about the campaign... Right, there's something I need to tell you. Part of the reason my remaining president is so... Part of the reason my remaining president is so important is... I think presidency is what they meant. Presidency is important because last year, I implemented a 2-year plan. I laid the groundwork for students to be able to petition Asagao Academy for school funding for various interests. And then I spent all that year challenging decades-old legislation that prevented, certain groups from fully expressing themselves. I'll say, it took forever, but it got done. This year is the year we're actually going to do something with that legislation by throwing school-wide festivals and holidays to learn about and celebrate all sorts of different things, including the tournament. He grinned broadly at me. There's other stuff than just the tournament in there, right? Oh yeah, lots of genuinely important stuff. But I wanted to throw us all a bone too. We're lucky it falls on a Saturday this year. Last year we had to create a distraction because Jared couldn't afford to skip a day of class. I convinced Mr. Saitama I was a rare breed of werewolf that turns in broad daylight, and we had to get Mr. McPasta to help us. Why on earth would Mr. McPasta help with that? Nick shrugged. Jizz. He's a weird dude, but he's a nice guy. If it's for a laugh, he'll do it. I think he just wants to see the reaction. Plus, he seems kind of into stuff like that. Nick jerked a thumbs up across the cafeteria, and I saw Mr. McPasta peering closely at the string of raw beef, a malicious grin on his face. So we've been trying to decide our strategy this year, but we haven't got any idea what to do. See. Josh pushed forward, setting his hands on the table and staring me down like a lion. If you ask me, we need to leave the people alone. Keep the whole election on the down low, meeting our competition's campaign effort but never exceeding them. We want the election to fall away from people's minds, so when the ballot rolls around, they go in with a comfortable face. That's a terrible idea. We need to win their hearts, not hope they forget we exist. If you can make them like Paul, if we can make them think he would be a cool dude to get a drink with, or someone they can relate to, they're bound to vote for him, because they'll trust how he runs things. I thought we should talk actual platforms, tell people what we're planning on doing. You did that last year, and because of all the legislation, you don't have much to show for it. We can't do that, or they won't believe you. Your plan is basically the same thing. They'll still think you won't be able to do anything. People just want to stick with the status quo, and if we play our cards right, we can use that to our advantage. I don't want to manipulate anybody either, and I don't like sitting and waiting for stuff to happen. I like to be proactive. Yeah, too proactive. Ouch, that hurts. I watched them bicker between themselves, waiting for a lapse in the conversation so I could get a word in edgewise, but one never came. After 7 minutes of watching them tread the same ground, I raised a timid hand. Hana! Right, Hana! You're the level-headed one. This is exactly what we wanted you for. What should we do?
What?
Wait, now I'm in charge of the decision?
What?
Paul nodded and pointed at me. It was clear the ball was in my court. Ah.
What?
With their hearts and minds, play defensively or talk platforms. So, Nick, Josh, or Paul. What would I go for a campaign? I would go with their hearts and minds. That would be my tactic, actually. I think. But at the same time, you also need to be clear on what you're planning. I'm gonna go with their hearts and minds. I knew mine was the best strategy. I shrugged apologetically at the other two. I didn't like being put on the spot like that. Having to make decisions all of a sudden was not my strong suit. Moreover, having to choose between people that was not something I liked to do, even if they themselves weren't taking it to heart. As I watched, Paul, Nick, and Josh started discussing tactics for the tournament. Nick's really good at grabs for some reason, and if the other person gets into close combat, I guess. We won't be able to tag out fast enough. By then, they'll have scooted away. Then maybe I should go in first ahead of you? I ate my sandwich slowly and gazed across the cafeteria. Mine and the rest of the Normal Boots crew were laughing about something. Maya was inching closer and closer to Jared with each passing second. She reached up to tap him on the shoulder, and he swerved away to talk to Shane, as if he didn't even notice. Well played, Jared. You think, Hana? Huh? You weren't listening, were you? Josh sighed heavily, then rubbed his temples. I can't work with this. I can't work with her. Paul wants you to go with him for... Paul wants you to go with him to the interview.
What?
Interview? Is on PB&J, so it's not a big deal. It'll be exactly like hanging out with the guys, don't worry. Paul, I really don't think I should. I'm not good at that kind of thing. Of course you are. Don't count yourself out before you even try. I'm not. I know how you get in front of crowds. It's really not for me. Paul rolled his eyes. I'm sure you'll do great if you give it a try. It's not even a crowd. It's just two guys. Please listen to me.
All right.
It's decided. You're coming with me. A shiver passed down my spine. Why weren't they listening to me? Just before, I was the only one who could decide on things, and now my opinion didn't count? I stared at my plate. I wasn't hungry anymore. I think I'm gonna head back. Really? Let me come with you then. Paul stood and Nick and Josh stood as well. We're coming too. Sorry, but I wanted to talk to Hana alone. Josh and Nick looked annoyed at this turn of events, but I couldn't tell whether it was because Paul was taking me away from them, or because I was hogging Paul. Dejected, they sat back and started debating the realities of spider tea parties. Spider tea parties? Woo! Undertale reference! I'm just saying, an actual spider would kill everyone. How? Phantom tea? Maybe. Paul and I tossed our trays, then headed out to campus. I really wasn't planning on having him follow me, but maybe now was a good time to talk to him about that article. Are you feeling better today? What? Paul searched my face, but what he was looking for, I didn't know. I blushed and looked away. You were really sad yesterday, so I was wondering. Oh, yeah, I guess I'm better now. I felt sick is all. Paul nodded. The campus was truly beautiful in the spring sunshine. There was a light breeze, and as I looked at the buildings we passed, I was reminded again of how well off Asagao was. The walkways were spick and span, the hedges perfectly trimmed. It wasn't a surprise the campus was a hive for rumors. So many rich kids, and no city to play in. So Paul, have you seen those rumors? Let's first save. Have you seen those rumors? They were in the newspaper, so... Yeah, those. Paul kicked a stray pebble off the sidewalk. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't mean to cause trouble. I wouldn't want to get in the way of any potential suitors, you know. No, it's really not really a problem. I was just what, hoping for some sort of reaction? I stared at my hands and Paul chuckled. If there's anything I can do to fix it, I will, trust me. I guess we'll just bide our time for now. Right. Stupid Hana. I shook my head. Poppy Hall rose in front of us, tall and imposing, a Georgian feel to its architecture. Paul held open the door for me. After you. He bowed in front of me, and with a giggle I headed inside. As we entered, I noticed an audible volume drop, as if people saw us and stopped talking, as if they were talking about us, and I didn't want to be overheard. It wasn't long before I realized why. The walls were lined with what could be best described as posters for a smear campaign. Paul's face was crossed out in all of them. Continue? No. Shouted at us from every inch of the walls. Paul's original campaign posters were nowhere to be seen. Paul stepped up to a row of lockers and tore down an image, holding it in front of him. Did Jeff do this? Why would he do this? It's not like him. Paul! Now that I was looking at the posters in his hands, I could see there was a small writing etched on the bottom of the poster. Paul is the bastard son of a Tanuki. There's no way we can prove he's really human, and you shouldn't trust people who aren't human. What are we going to do? What if people actually believe this? The look on his face broke my heart. I reached out to touch his arm, and he finally looked up from the poster and at me. so clearly not serious. People are smarter than this than to believe this kind of thing, right? I bet that's why Jeff did it, half as a joke. Paul sighed. I would love to give the general populace more credit, but fear-mongering and rumors, even when they're ridiculous, have a way of impacting people. You didn't know that for sure? Paul shot me a look and I trailed off. He also must have noticed the way conversation died when he walked into the room. If I can't continue being the president like this year, my 2-year plan will be left behind and forgotten. I worked all last year on that. I should have done something more flashy. Nobody knew what I was trying to help them. That I was trying to help them. Nothing happened after all my promises. They thought I was just goofing off. And now they don't trust me. If I had just known. Paul crumpled the flyer in his fist and threw it on the ground. I reached out and rubbed his back, looking fearfully around the hallway. Students had gathered and were watching us. Some were pointing while others seemed uncomfortable with this outburst and scurried away. Don't worry about this, Paul. We'll figure out a way to fix it. Oh, we will. His face darkened and I took my hand from his back. We definitely will. We definitely will. Paul stalked off shortly after, claiming he needed to find a safe place to let off some steam. Let him go. I had some steam of my own to let off. Jeff! Jeff, who had been leaning over a desk talking with Ian, shot up straight as a rod. I stared up at him, shaking with rage. Why did you do that? Jeff swallowed, but smiled half-heartedly.
What?
What'd I do? Don't act like that with me. I know you're smarter than that. How could you do something like that to Paul? Jeff glanced away from me for a second or two, then looked at me again. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's not like people are going to believe them. It's a lighthearted and funny way to campaign against them. Lighthearted? Rumor mongering? It was a joke. Paul's got charisma. He's got a magnetism to him, and he's got the bonus of having been president last year. Comparatively, I've got a little to go off of. He didn't really know me as funny, so I found a way to throw a humor into the mix. I don't see what's wrong.
No!
People are going to believe them! People aren't that stupid, Hana. You're not doing them justice. He folded his arms, mind apparently made up. No matter what I said, he was sticking with the posters. If it makes you feel any better, I helped him put them up. I glared incredulously at Ian. Why would that make me feel better? I don't know, but it was worth a shot. Ah! I threw up my hands and marched back to my desk. That was it. It was on. This meant war. Paul would win this campaign if it was the last thing I ever did. As soon as the bell rang, I packed my bags and ran to the door.
Hana!
Hana, wait!
See you later.
Sorry, really important election business here. Woo. I sprinted to the 4th floor and managed to catch Paul right as he was coming out of class. Paul, we need to hold a meeting immediately to discuss our strategy. We stared at each other in surprise. I see I picked the perfect campaign manager. Where are the other two? Paul pointed to the classroom behind him, where Nick and Josh were thumb wrestling as if their lives depended on it. Josh crumpled to the ground under pressure of Nick's thumb, tears leaking from his eyes. I will not give in. Wait. Is that him? I will not give in. Speaking of which, I have not heard any voice clips from Josh. I have from Paul and Nick, but not from Josh. To be honest, I think it sounds a little bit like Catty. You'll lose your thumb if you don't. They've got cleanup duty and they're wrestling for it. Let's just have the meeting in there then. We can help them clean up. Another great idea from our campaign manager. Hana's getting a little too heated, to be honest. Okay. He slapped me on the back with a chuckle. Yet you think you won't be able... Yet you think you won't be good on the broadcast? I can't believe this. Paul, you're not going to force me to do it, are you? Paul pushed me into the room, bypassing a confused Hatch and Jared on the way. Don't worry. We have more important things to discuss right now anyway. I figured that between the three of us, the classroom would get cleaned in no time. I should have known better. The three of them fought each other constantly, using each new cleaning tool as a weapon. Mops became lances, brooms became throwing lances, cleaning sprays a pepper spray equivalent. I cleaned silently on my own, working quickly to make up for the messes they started. By the time we were done, my head was throbbing and I wanted to murder someone! Couldn't they see the strain they were causing on other people? Or were they really too wound up in their own worlds to care? No wonder Paul wanted me to be their campaign manager. The only person passive enough to not up and walk out. I clucked and, as if on cue, Paul stood. Okay, my friends and loved ones, as you can see, we have a bit of a situation on our hands. The enemy is using dirty tactics in order to destroy our main line of defense, my good reputation. He started pacing through the room, the movement calming my tired eyes and making it easier to focus. He seemed to be the kind of person who moved a lot when he spoke. The kind of person who had a lot of energy and passion, and nowhere necessarily to put it. That must have been how he managed to stay in the club and through a newspaper on top of his presidency. How on earth had he found so many things that caught his passion? Here I was, coming to Asagao more to escape something than to pursue something, and this kid was picking up meaning like pretty leaves in a fall. I think there's only one thing we can do. He smacked a fist into his palm, eyes burning. We strike back!
What?
What? Nick and Josh roared and jumped to their feet, tribal dancing around Paul. I stared at him. At them. You can't be serious. We have to fight with fire. I'm not going to sit back and take this. Sit back and take what? A little bit of name calling? I blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of what was happening. Mai's words floated back to me. Sometimes it happens, you know? They seem great until you spend all your time with them. But... That's not what I want. Okay, I'm gonna be... That is a terrible idea!
No.
That's not going to work at... I'm sorry, guys. That is not going to work at all! You don't know that. Does it ever work in politics? Yeah, all the time, actually. But... Okay, this is not the way to go. That's not what I want. What is that going to accomplish? What I want is definitely childish. I think. Like, I wanna... Anyway. Paul glared at me. Do you think people want to push over a president? Wait, what? So... No. Okay, so that was the better option. I think I need to get a little better at people. That's not what I want. Paul rubbed his chin carefully. Paul's idea. Okay. Paul rubbed his chin carefully. Okay, then what do you want? Damn it. I want the student body to want to vote for you, not to not want to vote for Jeff. Paul's eyebrows shot to the ceiling, but Josh scoffed. It's what happens in the end that matters, not how you get there. How draconian of you. More Draco Malfoy, if you ask me. Zoe, I far reverence, yay. Paul searched my eyes for a bit. Hana, you... I glared at him, trying to tell him all I wanted to say through my eyes. No matter what, it wasn't right. There's no way I would be able to hold my ground, not with all three of them against me, like they were. But if Paul could understand how I felt about it, maybe then he wouldn't let it happen. If you do that, I'm leaving this campaign. Ta-da! You'd actually? I wasn't trying to join a group of bullies. I was trying to join to make some kind of a difference. That's what I thought mattered to you. Of course, saving face is legit, too. If you're concerned about your pride, then by all means continue with what you're doing. I doubt it'll have the effect you're wanting it to, though. People who only want to take from another people can never earn others' respect in the end. Are you implying that Paul is like that? I shrugged, my heart beating rapidly. I didn't know what I was implying, but I knew what I was thinking. And my thinking was that I didn't want to be around a person like that. I didn't want to be friends with a bully. I wasn't about to let rumors ruin someone else's life just because I stood to gain something from it. Paul and I stared at each other, passing through an absurd kind of stalemate. No, Hana's right.
What?
I am?
Really?
She is. She is. He smirked, then shook his head.
All right.
I knew there was some fire in you. Would you mind telling me these things? I'd love to know more about who you think I am. Paul crowed and clapped his hands. See? She's got a mouth on her. He jumped up and down and I frowned at him, feeling like an elephant in the circus tent. Do you mind? Right, sorry. If we're not doing that, then our next bet is to He glanced at me. Nick, Josh, neither of us said anything. Confront him? You know, what would be better if you just like hang your own posters next to like the no posters, because like, you know the phrase any publicity is good publicity? All the posters on the walls are gonna be Paul's face. If you just like stick your like own good posters next to it, like people are gonna see Paul's face everywhere. Like, more votes for him. I already did that, actually. He insists they saw it as a joke.
Really?
A joke? They? Ian helped. I knew that poster was too clever to be Jeff. Alright! Mind games. Paul smacked his hand on the desk, grinning wildly. We're going to win this campaign no matter what, got it? That was already the plan. Yeah, well, now it's Plan 5.0, and there's no room for mistaking Plan 5.0, got it? I guess so. If you understand, put your hands in. He nodded to his hand on the desk. Nick and Josh threw their hands on top of his, and all three turned to look plainly at me. Hana? I sighed and put my hand in too.
Yeah!
Wonderful! To presidency and the tournament! May we win it all! Ha! Paul threw his hand up into the air all by himself. Nick, Josh, and I followed a second later. A belated heh escaping from our lips. We gotta work on that, first of all. He put his hand on the desk again and nodded for us to get into formation. I followed suit, head spinning. What? Oh, what had I gotten myself into? Oh, whoops. And then the next chapter? Okay, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna save the game here. Oh, don't even need to save. I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna take a quick break. So, see you guys in a bit.